The stars twisted and bent as the massive alien ship dropped out of hyperspace. Behind it, 47 more vessels appeared in flashes of blue light. The Veltar conquest fleet had arrived at the edge of the solar system, ready to claim their next prize. Admiral Kethver stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dominion's Edge. His tall frame cast a shadow across the control panels as he studied the data streaming in from their sensors. The third planet from the star looked perfect. Blue oceans, white clouds, and green continents showed a world rich with life and resources. "Report," Kethver commanded, his voice echoing in the vast bridge chamber. Commander Yelthik stepped forward, holding a data tablet in his clawed hands. "Long-range scans confirm the intelligence reports, Admiral. Humans have achieved basic orbital flight, but nothing more. We detect primitive satellites around their planet and a small outpost on their moon. No signs of military vessels or defensive networks." Kethver's mouth curved into what passed for a smile among his species. "Excellent. Another easy conquest for the Empire. How long until we reach optimal attack position?" 17 standard days at current speed, Admiral. The fleet will maintain communication silence as per standard invasion protocol." The Admiral nodded and turned back to the main display screen. Earth hung there like a blue jewel, unaware that death was coming for it. This would be conquest number 48 for Kethver. He had perfected the art of planetary invasion over decades of service to the Veltar Empire. The plan was simple, and had worked on every world they had encountered. First, the fleet would approach slowly and silently. Inhabitants never noticed, until it was too late. An orbital bombardment would destroy any military installations in major cities. Finally, ground troops would land to secure resources and round up survivors for the slave markets. "Begin standard approach pattern," Kethver ordered. "All ships maintain stealth protocols. No active scanning beyond passive sensors." The 48 warships of the Conquest Fleet began their journey toward Earth. Each vessel was a kilometer long and armed with weapons that could crack open moons. The Veltar had used this same fleet to crush the crystal cities of Xandar and burn the jungle worlds of the Kretel system. Earth would be no different. In the depths of space, the alien ships moved like silent predators. Their hulls were dark metal that absorbed light and radar. To any primitive sensors, they would appear as nothing more than asteroids drifting through the void. The Veltar had learned long ago that surprise was their greatest weapon. 3 days into their approach, Yelthik brought another report to the Admiral. "Sir, we are detecting more activity around the human world than expected. They're orbital. Traffic seems unusually heavy for such a primitive species." Kethver barely looked up from his tactical displays. Probably just more of their crude satellites. These young species always clutter their orbital space with junk before they learn proper space management. It will make no difference when we begin bombardment. "Yes, Admiral." "Should we adjust our approach vector?" "No, maintain current heading. I want to be in optimal position for the attack. The sooner we finish this conquest, the sooner we can return to civilized space." What neither the Admiral nor his crew knew was that every move they made was being watched. Deep beneath the surface of Earth's moon, in chambers carved from solid rock, hundreds of humans monitored screens filled with data about the approaching fleet. General Patricia Hayes stood in the command center of Luna Base. Her eyes fixed on the tactical display showing the alien ships. "How long have they been on approach?" she asked the technician beside her. 3 days, General. Our deep space sensors picked them up the moment they dropped out of hyperspace. The computer analysis matches the ship designs we captured from the probe 5 years ago. Hayes nodded grimly. 5 years ago, a damaged alien scout ship had crashed in the Pacific Ocean. The technology they recovered from that wreck had changed everything. It proved that Earth was not alone in the universe, and that something was coming. Signal strength of their communications? Hayes asked. "Complete radio silence, ma'am. They think they are being sneaky, but our gravity wave detectors track every ship in their formation. We know exactly where they are and where they are going." The general turned to address the room full of officers and technicians. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is what we have been preparing for. Send the alert to all defense stations. Operation Human Shield is now active. Across the solar system, messages flashed between hidden installations. On Earth, massive doors opened. In mountainsides, to reveal weapon emplacements that had been built in secret over the past 5 years. In the asteroid belt, mining ships that looked innocent began powering up military systems hidden in their hulls. The aliens continued their approach, confident in their stealth and superiority. They had conquered 47 worlds using the same tactics. Their ships were faster, their weapons more powerful, and their technology more advanced than anything the primitive humans could possibly have. Admiral Kethver reviewed the final attack plans in his private quarters. The orbital bombardment would begin with the destruction of major population centers. New York, London, Beijing, Moscow, all would be reduced to ash within the first hour. Then his troops would land to secure the survivors and strip the planet of anything valuable. Another easy victory, he said to himself as he sealed the orders in an encrypted data chip. Hey, these humans will never know what hit them. But in the cold depths of space, human sensors continued their silent watch. Every alien ship was tracked and targeted. Weapons systems that should not have existed on a primitive world powered up in the darkness. The trap was set, and the hunters had become the hunted. The Veltar fleet continued its approach toward Earth. Unaware that they were flying into the greatest ambush in galactic history, Admiral Kethver stood on his bridge, watching the blue planet grow larger on the main screen. 3 weeks had passed since they entered this system, and everything was going according to plan. The human world hung before them like ripe fruit. Waiting to be picked? Distance to target? He asked his navigation officer. 2 million kilometers in closing, Admiral. We will reach optimal bombardment range in 6 hours. Kethver nodded with satisfaction. Soon the orbital bombardment would begin, and another world would fall to the might of the Veltar Empire. He turned to his weapons officer. Begin charging the main guns. I want full power to all weapon systems, yes, Admiral. Ships report weapons coming online. The 48 warships of the Conquest fleet moved in perfect formation toward Earth. Their massive hulls gleamed in the sunlight as they prepared to unleash destruction on the world below. Every gun port was opening. Every missile tube was loading. The attack would be swift and merciless. But something was wrong. The first sign of trouble came from the asteroid belt. Commander Yelthik was monitoring the sensor displays when he noticed unusual readings from what they had marked as mining vessels. Admiral, he called out, his voice tight with concern. The mining ships in the asteroid belt are moving. Their engine signatures are much stronger than they should be for civilian vessels. Kethver frowned and moved to the sensor station. On the screen, dozens of ships that had appeared to be simple mining craft were now racing toward them at impossible speeds. As he watched, the vessels began to change shape. Panels slid away to reveal hidden weapon batteries. Fake cargo holds open to show missile launchers. Those are not mining ships, Kethver said slowly. Those are warships. Before anyone could respond, the space around Earth itself began to transform. What had looked like simple space stations and communication satellites suddenly unfolded like deadly flowers. Massive gun barrels extended from hidden compartments. Missile pods deployed from structures that had seemed too small to hold them. Battle stations, Kethver shouted. Ships, evasive maneuvers. We are under attack. But it was already too late. The humans had planned this ambush perfectly. From every direction, weapons fire erupted toward the alien fleet. Railgun slugs moving at impossible speeds smashed into Veltar ships before they could raise their shields. Missiles with advanced guidance systems swarmed around the alien vessels like angry insects. The Veltar flagship shuddered as a massive projectile struck its starboard side. Sparks flew from control panels as the lights flickered. Kethver grabbed a support rail to keep from falling as another impact rocked the ship. Shields at 60%, his tactical officer reported. We are taking heavy damage from multiple directions. Return fire. All weapons. Target the nearest human ships. The Veltar fleet began to fight back, their energy weapons lancing out toward the attacking human vessels. But the humans had spent 5 years studying alien technology from the crashed scout ship. They knew exactly where to hit the Veltar ships to cause maximum damage. The human strategy was brilliant in its simplicity. They had turned the entire inner solar system into a trap. Every space station, every satellite, every mining ship had been a disguised weapon platform. The aliens found themselves caught in a crossfire from all sides with nowhere to run. Captain Lisa Chen commanded one of the disguised frigates that had been hiding in the asteroid belt. Her ship, the Terran Hammer, had spent 2 years pretending to be a mining vessel while its crew prepared for this moment. Target the alien command ship, she ordered her weapons officer. Hit their bridge section with everything we have. All railguns. Terran Hammer's main gun spoke with voices of thunder. 3 tungsten slugs, each weighing as much as a car and moving at 10% of light speed, streaked toward the alien flagship. The first slug punched through the ship's shields as if they were made of paper. The second and third shots tore massive holes in the vessel's hull. Admiral Kethfer watched in horror as his fleet was torn apart around him. Ship after ship exploded in brilliant flashes of light. The humans fought with a coordination and skill that should have been impossible. For such a primitive species, how are they doing this? He demanded. Their technology should be centuries behind ours. Commander Yelthic looked up from his damaged console, green blood running down his face from a head wound. Admiral, they are using our own weapons against us. Those missiles, those energy signatures, they are based on Veltar technology. Terrible truth began to dawn on Kethfer. The humans had somehow gained access to their technology. They had used it to prepare for this attack. Everything the Veltar thought they knew about this species was wrong. The battle raged for 6 hours. But the outcome was never in doubt. The human ambush was too well planned, too perfectly executed.
One by one,
the mighty Veltar warships fell, silent and dark. Some tried to escape, but human pursuit ships hunted them down with ruthless efficiency. When the guns finally stopped firing, the space around Earth was filled with the wreckage of the alien fleet. Broken ships drifted in the solar wind, their hulls cracked open like broken eggs. Of the 48 vessels that had come to conquer Earth, only 3 remained intact enough to be captured. Admiral Kethfer found himself a prisoner aboard his own flagship. Now, under human control, human soldiers in strange armor stood guard. While human technicians worked to save the ship's databases, everything had gone wrong. The conquest fleet was destroyed. The Empire's plans were in ruins. And he was alive only because the humans wanted prisoners to question. A human officer approached him. She was small compared to a Veltar warrior, but her eyes held a hardness that made Kethfer step back. "I am General Hayes of the Earth Defense Forces," she said through a translation device. "You came here to destroy our world. Instead, you have given us the tools to destroy yours." Kethfer stared at her in confusion. "What do you mean?" Hayes smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. "We have been watching your empire for 5 years, ever since one of your scout ships crashed on our planet. We learned about your technology, your tactics, and your plans. But most importantly, we learned where you come from." The alien admiral felt a chill run through his body as the human continued. "You came here expecting to find helpless primitives. Instead, you found a species that refuses to be conquered. Now we know where your bases are, how your ships work, and how to fight your empire. The hunters have become the hunted admiral. And we are very good at hunting." 6 months after the battle, the captured Veltar ships floated in Earth's orbital shipyards like giant metal whales being taken apart by busy workers. Human engineers crawled through every section of the alien vessels, studying each piece of technology with the desperate focus of a species that knew more enemies were coming. Dr. Sarah Martinez wiped sweat from her forehead as she emerged from the engine room of the captured flagship. Her team had been working around the clock to understand the alien faster-than-light drive. The mathematics were incredibly complex, but human scientists were making progress faster than anyone had expected. "Any luck with the hyperspace generator?" asked Colonel James Murphy, the military liaison assigned to oversee the reverse engineering project. "Oh, we cracked it yesterday," Sarah said with exhaustion in her voice. The basic principles are similar to our theoretical models, but their execution is centuries ahead of ours. Give us another month, and we should have a working prototype. Murphy nodded grimly. Make it 3 weeks. Intelligence suggests the Veltar Empire will notice their missing fleet soon. We need to be ready to take the fight to them before they send reinforcements. In the medical bay of Luna Base, Admiral Kethfer sat in a specially designed chair while human interrogators questioned him. The alien had been cooperative once he realized the hopelessness of his situation. His pride was broken, and he seemed almost eager to share information about his former empire. Tell us about the staging areas, demanded Agent Rebecca Foster, the lead interrogator. Where does your empire prepare its conquest fleets? Kethfer looked at the human woman with what might have been respect in his alien eyes. The nearest forward base is at Kepler 44b, 3 systems away from here. They maintain 60 ships there at all times, ready for rapid deployment to new targets. Foster leaned forward in her chair. How long before they expect your fleet to report back? Standard conquest operations take 6 months from start to finish. We have been gone for 4 months. In 2 more months they will expect a status report. When none comes, they will send a scout ship to investigate. Agent Foster exchanged glances with the other humans in the room. 2 months to prepare for the next wave of attackers. It was not much time, but it might be enough. The alien continued speaking, his voice heavy with defeat. But you do not understand the true scope of what you face. The Veltar Empire controls over 300 star systems. We have conquered 47 species. Your victory here means nothing in the face of such power. We'll see about that, Foster replied. She stood up and prepared to leave. Thank you for your cooperation, Admiral. Your information has been very helpful. After the humans left, Kethfer sat alone in his cell, wondering what terrible mistake his people had made in attacking this small blue world. The humans were not like any species the Empire had encountered before. They learned too quickly, adapted too fast, and fought with a viciousness that reminded him of ancient predators. Meanwhile, in the secret laboratories beneath the Swiss Alps, human scientists worked frantically to duplicate alien technology. The breakthrough came when Dr. Chen Wei figured out how to reproduce the alien energy shields. The secret was in the quantum field generators that the Veltar used to bend space around their ships.
Ow.
The power requirements are enormous, Chen explained to the gathered military leaders, but we can build them. Our fusion reactors can provide enough energy, and we already have the materials we need. General Hayes studied the technical specifications on her tablet. How long to outfit a fleet? 6 weeks for the first ship, then faster as we perfect the process. We can have 20 vessels ready in 3 months. We don't have 3 months, Hayes replied. Aliens will send scouts in 2 months. Need to hit their base before they realize what happened here. The decision was made in a closed session of the Earth Defense Council. Humanity would build a strike fleet using combined human and alien technology. Their target would be the Veltar staging area at Kepler 44b. The mission was simple in concept, but nearly impossible to execute. Destroy the alien base before it could warn the Empire about Earth's defenses. Admiral Sandra Chen, Lisa's older sister, was chosen to command the mission. She stood in the command center of the newly constructed ship Retribution, watching her crew run final systems checks. The vessel was a hybrid of human and alien technology, armed with railguns, energy weapons, and missile systems that would have been impossible to build just a year ago. All departments report ready, Admiral, her executive officer announced. Very good. Signal the fleet. We launch in 1 hour. The human strike fleet consisted of 12 ships, each one a technological marvel born from captured alien science. The crews were volunteers who understood this might be a one-way mission. If they failed to destroy the alien base completely, Earth would face retaliation from an entire galactic empire, as the ships prepared for their first hyperspace jump. Admiral Chen addressed her crew over the intercom. Ladies and gentlemen, we are about to make history. 6 months ago, aliens came to destroy our world. Today, we take the fight to them. Our mission is to buy Earth time to prepare its defenses by eliminating the nearest threat to our home. She paused, looking out at the stars through the bridge windows. The aliens think we are primitive. They think we are weak. Today we show them what happens when you threaten humanity.
Ow. Ships.
Prepare for hyperspace. The fleet vanished into hyperspace, leaving Earth behind as they raced toward their target. In the strange dimension between normal space, the human ships traveled faster than light for the first time in their species' history. They carried with them the hopes and fears of an entire world. At Kepler-4 for 2b. The Veltar base continued its routine operations. Commander Zekthon supervised the loading of supplies onto 3 new conquest fleets. The Empire's expansion continued without pause, just as it had for thousands of years. Soon these ships would depart to claim new worlds for the glory of the Tar. He had no idea that death was coming for him through hyperspace, carried by a species that refused to accept defeat. The predators of Earth were about to show the galaxy what it meant to threaten their home. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace like sharks smelling blood in the water. 12 ships appeared inside the Kepler 442 system, their hulls gleaming with the deadly beauty of hybrid human-alien technology. Admiral Sandra Chen stood on the bridge of the Retribution, watching the tactical display fill with enemy contacts. Target analysis complete, reported Lieutenant Commander Jackson from the sensor station. 63 Veltar vessels at the base, plus orbital defense platforms. And supply depots? It's exactly as the prisoner described. Chen nodded grimly. The alien base spread across 3 moons of the gas giant, Kepler 442b. Massive shipyards constructed new vessels, while supply warehouses held enough weapons and equipment to conquer dozens of worlds. It was the perfect target to cripple Veltar operations in this sector. Communications. Any response from the base? Negative, Admiral. They seem to be in complete shock. Our appearance inside their defensive perimeter caught them completely off guard. Chen smiled coldly. The humans had learned much from studying Veltar tactics over the past months. The aliens always approached their targets slowly and cautiously. They never expected an enemy to strike directly at the heart of their operations with such speed and precision. All ships. Execute attack pattern Alpha. Target the command structures first, then the shipyards. We want to cause maximum confusion. Before they can organize a defense. At the Veltar base, Commander Zekthon stared at his displays in disbelief. 12 unknown ships had appeared in the middle of his most secure facility. The vessels were small compared to Veltar warships, but their energy signatures were unlike anything in his databases. Where did they come from? He demanded of his tactical officer. Unknown, Commander? They appeared without warning. Our sensors detected no hyperspace signatures until they were already here. Impossible. No one can jump directly into a defended system without triggering our early warning networks. Before the alien commander could process what was happening, the human attack began. The Retribution opened fire with its main railgun, sending a tungsten slug screaming toward the base's primary command center. The projectile struck with the force of a small nuclear weapon, vaporizing the entire structure in a flash of superheated metal. Across the base, human ships unleashed, carefully coordinated strikes. They had spent weeks studying the layout of Veltar facilities from captured data. Every shot was precisely aimed to cause maximum damage to critical systems. Shipyards exploded in chains of secondary detonations. Supply depots vanished in brilliant fireballs that could be seen from orbit. The Veltar ships at the base tried to respond, but they were caught completely unprepared. Most were docked for maintenance or resupply. Their crews scrambled to reach battle stations. While human missiles and energy beams tore through their hulls like paper, Commander Zekthon watched his command crumble around him as human weapons reduced his base to burning wreckage. "Get me a communication channel to any ship that can still fight," he shouted over the alarms. "Sir, the Executioner and the Dark Conquest are still operational. They're trying to break free of the docking clamps. Tell them to ram the enemy ships. If necessary, we cannot let these attackers escape to report our weakness." But the human fleet had no intention of staying long enough for a prolonged battle. Their mission was to strike hard and fast, then disappear before reinforcements could Arrive. As the last of the major installations exploded, Admiral Chen gave the order to withdraw. All ships, prepare for hyperspace jump. Mission accomplished. The human fleet vanished as suddenly as they had appeared, leaving behind only burning wreckage and stunned survivors. The great Veltar base at Kepler 44b had been reduced to scrap metal and debris in less than 4 hours. But the victory came with an unexpected discovery. During the attack, the human ships had captured several intact data cores from the alien command centers. As the fleet raced back toward Earth through hyperspace, intelligence officers worked frantically to decode the information. What they found changed everything. "Admiral, you need to see this," called Lieutenant Sarah Kim from the intelligence station. "The data we captured contains detailed maps of the entire Veltar Empire. Star charts, fleet positions, conquered worlds, everything." Chen moved to look at the displays, her face growing pale as she absorbed the scope of what they faced. The Veltar Empire was vast beyond imagination. Hundreds of star systems stretched across thousands of light years. Millions of ships patrolled space lanes between conquered worlds. "How many species are under their control?" she asked quietly. "At least 57 different civilizations, Admiral. Some conquered recently, others enslaved for centuries. Empire has been expanding for over 2,000 years. But there was more. Hidden in the classified sections of the alien databases was information that made Chen's blood run cold. The Veltar were not the ultimate power in this region of space. They were vassals themselves, serving an even greater empire that controlled thousands of species across multiple galactic arms. "There's something else, Admiral," Kim continued, her voice tight with concern. "We intercepted a transmission from deep in Veltar space. It was sent just before we destroyed their communication array." Chen leaned closer to the screen. "What kind of transmission?" "A distress call. They managed to warn their superiors about our attack before we silenced them. The message was sent to something called the Core Worlds. According to these files, that's where the real power lies." The Admiral felt her stomach drop as she realized the implications. Her successful strike had bought Earth time, but it had also revealed humanity's existence to forces beyond their worst nightmares. The Veltar Empire would respond to this attack with overwhelming force. "How long before they can mount a counterattack?" she asked. Kim consulted the alien star charts and fleet deployment records. "Based on their normal response protocols, 6 months minimum. But Admiral, they won't just send another conquest fleet. According to these files, attacks on Veltar bases are considered acts of rebellion. The standard response is complete extermination of the attacking species." Chen stared at the tactical displays showing the vast network of alien-controlled space. Humanity had won 2 battles, but they had also painted a target on Earth that could be seen across the galaxy. The small blue world that had once been hidden in the cosmic dark was now marked for destruction by powers that commanded fleets numbering in the millions. "Signal Earth," she ordered. "Tell them we succeeded in destroying the base, but we have bigger problems coming. We need to prepare for war on a scale we never imagined." As the human fleet continued its journey home through hyperspace, Admiral Chen wondered if their victories had saved Earth or simply guaranteed its destruction. They had proven that humanity could fight and win against impossible odds. But they had also awakened sleeping giants that had ruled the galaxy for millennia. The hunters had become the hunted, but the real hunt was just beginning. The emergency session of the Earth Defense Council lasted 3 days. Representatives from every nation sat around the massive table in Geneva, studying the intelligence data brought back from the alien base. The holographic display showed the true scope of the Veltar Empire, and beyond it, the even larger core worlds that controlled thousands of species. General Patricia Hayes stood at the head of the table, her face grim as she addressed the assembled leaders. "Ladies and gentlemen, we face a choice that will determine the future of our species. We can retreat to Earth and hope our defenses can withstand what's coming. Or we can do something that no conquered species has ever attempted." President Chen of the Pacific Federation leaned forward. "What are you proposing, General?" Hayes activated a new display showing communication frequencies and broadcast networks captured from the alien databases. We make contact with every enslaved species in the galaxy, share our technology and tactics with them, start a rebellion. The room erupted in arguments. Some leaders called the plan suicide. Others worried about revealing Earth's location. Two potential enemies. But slowly, as the debate continued, a consensus began to form. Humanity had proven that the Veltar could be defeated. If other species learned the same lessons, the entire galaxy could change. Dr. Sarah Martinez, now head of the Alien Technology Research Division, stood to address the council. The communication network we captured gives us access to every species under Veltar control. We can reach billions of enslaved beings across hundreds of worlds, but we need to move fast. Our analysis suggests the Empire will respond to our attacks within 4 months. The vote was close, but the decision was made. Earth would broadcast humanity's knowledge to every enslaved species in the galaxy. They would share their military tactics, their hybrid technology designs, and most importantly, proof that the Veltar could be beaten. 3 weeks later, the most important message in galactic history began transmitting from hidden relay stations throughout human space. The broadcast was simple but powerful. It showed footage of the destruction of the Veltar conquest fleet at Earth, technical specifications for weapons that could penetrate alien shields, and tactical manuals written in dozens of alien languages. The message was clear. The Veltar Empire could be defeated, and humanity was willing to show others how to do it. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Within days, alien transmissions flooded the communication networks as enslaved species across the galaxy received the human broadcasts. On worlds that had been under Veltar control for centuries, resistance movements that had never dared to dream of freedom began to organize. The Kretel, whose jungle worlds had been stripped bare by Veltar mining operations, were the first to act. Using modified human tactics and weapons designs, they seized control of 3 orbital defense platforms and turned them against their oppressors. The rebellion spread like wildfire as other species saw that victory was possible. On the crystal cities of Xandar, as the native population emerged from underground hideouts carrying weapons built from human blueprints, the Veltar garrison was overwhelmed in a matter of hours. Similar uprisings erupted on dozens of worlds as enslaved species discovered they could fight back effectively. The Veltar Empire, designed to crush individual rebellions on single worlds, found itself facing something it had never encountered: simultaneous revolts across hundreds of star systems. Their military doctrine called for overwhelming force applied to one target at a time. They had no strategy for dealing with galaxy-wide resistance. Admiral Kethfer, still a prisoner on Luna Base, watched the reports with amazement. Agent Foster found him in his cell, staring at a display showing the collapse of his former empire. "Your people really did it," he said quietly. "In 2,000 years of expansion, no species has ever united the galaxy against us. We thought we were unbeatable." Foster sat down across from the alien admiral. "You made one critical mistake. You assumed that because you could defeat us individually, you could defeat us when we worked together. Humans learned long ago that cooperation is more powerful than conquest." The war lasted 18 months. Human advisors and technology spread throughout the galaxy as formerly enslaved species coordinated their attacks. The Veltar tried desperately to maintain control, but their forces were spread too thin across too many fronts. The final blow came when the core worlds themselves came under attack. The vast empire that had controlled multiple galactic arms for millennia discovered that their vassals had turned against them. Species they had ruled for thousands of years rose up using human tactics and hybrid technology. When the fighting finally ended, the galaxy was free for the first time in recorded history. The Veltar Empire was shattered, its fleets destroyed or captured. The core worlds had surrendered after their home systems fell to coordinated attacks by dozens of allied species. Admiral Sandra Chen, now aged and gray from years of war, stood in the Great Assembly Hall on the neutral world of Kepler Prime. Around her, Representatives from over 200 species gathered for the first Galactic Council of Free Worlds. The hall buzzed with dozens of different languages as former enemies worked together to build a new civilization. "It's hard to believe," said General Hayes, who had traveled from Earth for the historic occasion. 5 years ago, we thought we were alone in the universe. Now we're helping to govern a galactic alliance." Chen nodded, watching a group of former Veltar officers working alongside their former slaves to establish trade agreements. The irony is that they came to conquer us and ended up liberating the entire galaxy. If they had left Earth alone, none of this would have happened. A young aide approached with the latest reports from the outer systems. "Admiral, the last of the core. World resistance has surrendered. The transition to democratic government is proceeding smoothly on all formerly controlled worlds." Chen smiled as she looked around the assembly hall. Beings that had been mortal enemies just months ago now debated policy and shared technology freely. The galaxy that had been ruled by fear and conquest for millennia was learning to govern itself through cooperation and mutual respect. What's next for humanity? Hayes asked. Chen considered the question as she watched. A Credal engineer explained atmospheric processing techniques to a group of former Veltar scientists. "We keep doing what we've always done best. We adapt, we learn, and we help others do the same. The galaxy is big enough for all of us to thrive together." As the first session of the Galactic Council began, representatives from across the galaxy stood together to swear an oath that no species would ever again be enslaved or conquered. The age of galactic empires was over. The age of cooperation had begun. And it had all started because a small blue world refused to accept defeat. Commander Veltar pressed his long fingers against the cold metal of his ship's control panel. His dark eyes stared at the empty space outside the window. Out there, somewhere in that black void, was a star system that nobody talked about anymore. Earth, the home world of humans. 20,000 years had passed since anyone heard from them. 20,000 years of silence. Veltar was old enough to remember the stories his grandfather told him. Stories about the humans who came to the galaxy with their small ships and big dreams. They were not the strongest race or the smartest, but they were stubborn. They never gave up, even when things looked bad. The humans had colonies on dozens of worlds back then. They traded with the Zephyrian Confederacy. They made deals with the Kethmori Empire. They even tried to make friends with the cold and distant Arcturus Collective. Some alien races liked them. Others thought they were too loud and too quick to fight. But everyone agreed that humans were here to stay. Then one day they were gone. Not all at once. Not in a war or an explosion. They just stopped talking. Ships stopped coming to trade. Their messages stopped reaching other worlds. When other races sent ships to check on human colonies, they found empty cities. The lights were still on. The machines were still running, but no humans anywhere. Earth was the strangest of all. When the first scout ships reached the Sol system, they found something impossible. Earth was still there, still blue and green and beautiful. But it was surrounded by a wall of energy that no ship could pass through. Any probe that touched the barrier simply disappeared. Any message sent toward Earth got no answer. The galaxy's best scientists studied the barrier for years. They could not understand how it worked or what powered it. Some said it was a weapon. Others thought it was a shield. A few crazy theories suggested it was a door to somewhere else. But after 50 years of trying, everyone gave up. Earth was declared a dead world. The barrier was marked as a space hazard on all star charts. The human colonies were divided up among the other races. The Zephyrians took the mining worlds because they needed the metals. Kethmori claimed the farm planets because their people were always hungry. Smaller races picked up the research stations and trade posts that humans had built. It was like humans had never existed at all. Veltar had been born long after the humans disappeared. He grew up hearing stories about them the way other children heard fairy tales. Strange creatures who came from a world of water and walked on only 2 legs. They had no fur, No scales, no natural weapons, but somehow they built ships that could cross the stars. Now Veltar commanded his own ship, the Starwind. On patrol duty in the outer rim of Zephyrian space. It was boring work most of the time. Check this system, scan that asteroid field, Sure, no pirates were hiding in the dark between worlds. Pay was good, and the job was safe. Nothing exciting ever happened out here until today, Veltar was drinking his morning caf when the ship's computer started making noise. Warning sounds filled the bridge as his crew rushed to their stations. Commander called out his science officer. We're picking up something strange. Veltar set down his cup and walked over to look at the sensor display. Numbers and graphs covered the screen, but he could not make sense of what they meant. What am I looking at? He asked. Unknown energy signature, sir. It's big. Really big. And it's moving this way. Veltar felt his stomach tighten. In all his years of patrol duty, he had never seen an energy reading like this. The closest thing in the computer database was a star-going supernova. But there were no stars in that direction. Just empty space and the old human territories? Distance? He asked. 47 light-years enclosing. Speed is... Commander, this can't be right. What? The computer says it's moving at 97% light speed. Nothing can go that fast without tearing itself apart. Veltar stared at the screen. Ships could travel faster than light by jumping through hyperspace, but they had to slow down to normal speeds when they came back to real space. No known material could survive. Moving that fast for very long? Are you sure the sensors are working right? I've run 3 full diagnostics, sir. Everything checks out. Whatever this thing is, it's real, and it's headed straight for the old human sector. A cold feeling crept up Veltar's spine. The human sector had been empty for 20,000 years. Nothing lived there anymore except automated mining platforms and survey drones. What could possibly be coming from that direction? Send a message to Fleet Command, he ordered. Tell them we've got an unknown contact approaching human space. Request instructions. Yes, sir. Veltar walked back to his chair and sat down. Outside the window, the stars looked the same as always, cold and distant and silent. But somewhere, out there in the dark, something was coming. Something big and fast and impossible. He thought about the old stories his grandfather used to tell. Stories about humans who never gave up, no matter how bad things got. Stories about a race that vanished without explanation, leaving behind only empty worlds and unanswered questions. Maybe, after 20,000 years of silence, they were finally about to get some answers. The computer beeped softly, marking another minute passed, another minute closer to whatever was coming their way. Veltar gripped the arms of his chair and waited. The message from Fleet Command came back 3 hours later. Admiral Kresh's voice crackled through the speakers, full of worry and confusion. All ships in Sector 7 proceed to the human boundary at best speed. Form defensive positions, but do not engage unless fired upon. We need to see what we're dealing with. Veltar watched his navigation officer plot a course to the edge of human space. Around them, other Zephyrian ships were doing the same thing. The Starwind was just a patrol vessel, but bigger warships were coming too. He could see them on the long-range sensors, cruisers, destroyers, even a dreadnought from the core worlds. Whatever was coming, the fleet was taking it seriously. The journey took 2 days. When they arrived at the human boundary, Veltar saw the largest gathering of ships he had ever witnessed. Not just Zephyrian vessels, but Kethmori battle cruisers and Arcturus defense platforms. Even the mysterious Veil Runners had sent a few of their shadow ships. The entire galaxy seemed to be holding its breath. Commander, his sensor operator, called out, "The contact just dropped out of hyperspace." Veltar looked at the main screen and felt his blood turn to ice. The ship that appeared before them was impossible. It stretched across space like a metal mountain, bigger than some space stations. Its hull was black as the void between stars, but it seemed to absorb light rather than just block it. Strange patterns of energy crawled across its surface like living things. "How big is that thing?" Veltar whispered. 12 kilometers long, sir. 4 kilometers wide. Mass readings are... I can't get a clear reading. Sensors keep changing their minds. Along the side of the massive ship, Faded letters spelled out words in the old human language. ESV, Eternal Vigil. Below that, in smaller text, was something that made Veltar's hands shake. Earth Defense Corps. It's human, he breathed, but this was not the human technology he had learned about in school. Human ships were supposed to be small and crude, held together with metal plates and simple engines. This thing looked like it had been built by gods. Its hull seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal. Strange towers and spires jutted out at angles that hurt to look at. Energy fields danced around weapon ports that could swallow his entire ship. The communications array came alive with panicked chatter from dozens of ships. Everyone was asking the same questions. How was this possible? Where had the humans been for 20,000 years? What had they become? And the ghost ship spoke. The voice that came through every speaker in the fleet was not quite human anymore. It sounded like 1,000 people talking at once, their words layered together into something that was both beautiful and terrifying. "This is the ESV Eternal Vigil," the voice said. "We have returned to reclaim what was taken from us. All vessels in former human territories have 72 standard hours to withdraw. This is your only warning." Admiral Kresh's voice cut through the shocked silence. "Unknown vessel. This is Admiral Kresh of the Zephyrian Confederacy. Territories were legally claimed after your people abandoned them. We demand to speak with your commanding officer." The response came immediately, cold and final. "There is no commanding officer. There is only us. We are the children of Earth, changed by necessity and purpose. You have 71 hours and 57 minutes remaining." A Kethmori battlecruiser, the Pride of Kethmer, moved forward. Veltar knew its captain, a warrior named Vask, who had never backed down from a fight in his life. One ship against the combined fleet of 3 empires? Vask. Voice boomed across the communication channels. "You are brave, but foolish. Humans. Surrender now, and we will listen to your claims." The human ship's response was not words, but action. Energy beams lanced out from the Eternal Vigil. But they did not destroy the Kethmori cruiser. Instead, they wrapped around it like glowing ropes. The massive warship, all 800 meters, of armored death, was gently but firmly pushed backward. Its engines screamed at full power, trying to break free, but they might as well have been fighting a moon. "Weapon systems offline," came that shocked report. "Engines responding, but ineffective. They're not hurting us, but we can't move." More ships tried to approach. Energy fields reached out and caught them all, holding them in place like insects in a spider's web. The most advanced weapons in the galaxy fired on the human ship. Plasma. Cannons that could melt asteroids. Gravity bombs that could tear apart space itself. Quantum torpedoes that existed in several dimensions at once. Nothing worked. The attacks either bounced off the ship's hull or simply disappeared into energy fields that seemed to eat them up. The Eternal Vigil sat in space like a mountain, unmoved and untouchable. "This is impossible," whispered Veltar's science officer. "No known technology can do this." But the humans were not finished with their demonstration. The black ship began to change. Its hull flowed like water, reshaping itself. New weapons appeared and disappeared. The energy patterns on its surface grew brighter, forming symbols that no computer could translate. Then it spoke again, and this time the voice was sad. "We did not want to return. For 20,000 years we have stood guard in the darkness, protecting worlds that forgot we existed. But the time of hiding is over. The enemy we have fought for so long has finally turned its attention to inhabited space." "What enemy?" Admiral Kresh demanded. "You will know soon enough. Withdraw from our territories. We need every world, every resource, every shipyard that humanity ever built. The galaxy's survival depends on it." Transmission cut off, leaving the combined fleet floating in stunned silence. The Eternal Vigil released its hold on the captured ships and simply waited, patient as death itself. Veltar stared at the impossible vessel and wondered what the humans had become during their long absence. Whatever they were now, they were. No longer the species that had left the galaxy 20,000 years ago. They were something else entirely, something that scared him more than than any enemy he had ever faced. Dr. Zena Korath had spent her whole life studying dead civilizations. She was good at reading the stories that ruins told, finding meaning in broken walls and scattered bones. Standing in the abandoned human city on Kepler Prime, she felt like she was missing something important. The evacuation order had come down from the highest levels of government. All alien settlements in former human space had to be abandoned within 72 hours. But the Science Council had convinced the military to let small research teams stay behind, hidden in the ruins of old human colonies. They needed to understand what the humans had become, and maybe find clues about this mysterious enemy they claimed to be fighting. Zena's team had been studying human ruins for 3 days now. What they found made no sense. Look at this called. Her assistant Peck, from across the excavation site, was standing next to a wall covered in strange markings. These symbols weren't here yesterday. Zena hurried over to examine the wall. Peck was right. Fresh markings had appeared on the ancient stone, glowing faintly with their own light. They looked like human writing, but changed somehow, more complex. The letters seemed to move when she wasn't looking directly at them. The translation computer can't make sense of them, Peck said. It keeps giving different answers every time I scan the same symbol. Zena touched one of the glowing marks with her finger. The moment her skin made contact, images flooded her mind. She saw Earth as it had been 20,000 years ago, blue and green and beautiful. She saw humans working frantically on massive construction projects, building something enormous in the darkness between planets. She jerked her hand back, gasping. "What did you see?" Peck asked. "Fear," she whispered.
Us.
They were afraid of something coming from outside the galaxy, something terrible, or teams were making similar discoveries on other human worlds. Ancient buildings that had stood empty for millennia were suddenly showing signs of activity. Lights turned on in the darkness. Computers that had been dead for thousands of years began broadcasting incomprehensible data streams. It was as if the planets themselves were waking up. On the industrial world of Haven's Rest, an archaeological team found something even stranger. Deep underground, in the ruins of what had once been humanity's largest spaceship factory, they discovered a vast chamber filled with construction equipment. The machines were building something, working day and night without any visible control. "System. They're making weapon components," reported Dr. Vom, the team leader. "Huge ones. Each piece is the size of a small ship. But the design, I've never seen anything like it. The pieces being built look like they came from nightmares. Twisted metal shapes that seemed to bend space around them. Energy conduits that pulsed with dark light. Armor plating that absorbed scanner beams and gave nothing back." "How long have these machines been running?" asked Admiral Kresh during the emergency briefing. "That's the problem, sir," Dr. Vom replied through the communication link. "Carbon dating suggests they started working again exactly 72 hours ago. Right when the human ship appeared, the same pattern was repeating across dozens of worlds. Human technology that had been dormant for 20,000 years was coming back to life. That no alien science could understand. It was as if the entire human empire was preparing for war. But the most disturbing discovery came from a team studying Earth's solar system from a safe distance. They couldn't get past the energy barrier that surrounded the planet. But their long-range sensors had detected something impossible. "The barrier isn't just protecting Earth," reported Dr. Millax, the expedition's chief scientist. "It's hiding something enormous. Mass readings suggest there are artificial structures in the solar system that dwarf anything we've ever built. Some of them are bigger than moons." The team had also found evidence of massive energy discharges coming from the outer edges of the solar system. Signatures didn't match any known weapon type, but they were clearly directed outward toward the empty space between galaxies. "They've been fighting something out there," Dr. Millax continued. "For 20,000 years, they've been shooting at targets we can't even see." Intelligence analysts began piecing together a picture that terrified them. The humans hadn't abandoned the galaxy. They had hidden themselves away to fight a war that nobody else knew was happening, while other races divided up their colonies and forgot they ever existed. Humanity had been standing guard against something from the dark spaces beyond the stars. The evidence was everywhere once they knew what to look for. Deep space monitoring. Stations in the void between galaxies, their signals so weak they had been mistaken for cosmic background radiation. Weapon platforms built into asteroids at the very edge of explored space. Their barrels pointed not at inhabited worlds, but at the empty darkness beyond. Most disturbing of all were the messages. Ancient human communication relays were suddenly active again, broadcasting on frequencies so low they were almost undetectable. The messages were encrypted. But computer analysis revealed that they contained tactical information, battle reports, casualty lists stretching back 20,000 years. The humans had been at war this entire time, a war against something so dangerous that they had sacrificed everything to fight it. Their civilization, their individuality, their very humanity had been transformed into a weapon system designed for one purpose: to keep the galaxy safe from whatever lurked in the spaces between worlds. Xena stood in the abandoned human city, watching strange lights dance across the ancient buildings. Around her, alien evacuation ships were leaving the planet, carrying away 20,000 years of settlement and development. But she couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't really an evacuation. It was humanity finally coming home. And they were bringing a war with them that the rest of the galaxy wasn't ready to fight. The communication device on her belt crackled to life. It was a general broadcast from the Eternal Vigil, transmitted to every ship and every world in the galaxy. "People of the stars," the layered human voice said, "we know you are confused and afraid. We know our return seems like a threat to the lives you have built. But understand this, for 20,000 years, we have held the line against an enemy that would devour worlds like yours without thought or mercy. That enemy has finally turned its attention to inhabited space. The war we have fought in silence is about to become everyone's war. We need your help. But more than that, you need ours. The time for hiding is over. The time for silence has ended. What comes next will determine whether any of us survive to see another dawn." The transmission cut off, leaving Xena alone with the glowing ruins and the terrible knowledge that everything was about to change in the distance. Human machines continued their work, building weapons for a war that no one understood but everyone would have to fight. The first sign that something was terribly wrong came from the Deep Space Observatory on Titan Station, Dr. Nexus. A Veil Runner scientist known for his calm nature sent out a priority alert that made every military commander in the galaxy stop what they were doing. "Long-range sensors are detecting movement in the void," his report said. "Something massive is approaching from outside our galaxy. Estimated time of arrival, 6 standard days." Commander Veltar was still stationed near the human boundary when the news came through. He'd been watching the Eternal Vigil for days now, trying to understand how the massive ship worked. Sometimes it seemed solid as a mountain. Other times, parts of it appeared to fade in and out of reality like a ghost.
"Sir,"
his sensor operator called out, "We're getting readings from the edge of the galaxy. You need to see this." Veltar walked over to the sensor station and looked at the display. What he saw made his stomach drop. A dark shape was moving through the empty space between galaxies, heading straight for their spiral arm. The computer couldn't give him exact measurements because the thing seemed to change size every time the sensors looked at it. "How big is it?" he asked. "That's the problem, Commander. Sometimes it looks like a large ship. Sometimes it looks like a small moon. And sometimes," the operator's voice trailed off. "Sometimes what?" "Sometimes it looks like it's bigger than our entire solar system." Similar reports were coming in from observatories across the galaxy. The approaching entity defied every law of physics that alien science understood, moved without engines, generated no heat signature, and seemed to exist in multiple dimensions at once. Worst of all, everywhere it passed, space itself began to change. Stars near its path started burning different colors. Planets shifted in their orbits for no reason. In one system, all the moons of a gas giant suddenly began orbiting backward. Whatever this thing was, its very presence was breaking the rules that held the universe together. The Eternal Vigil responded. to the approaching threat by doing something that shocked every observer. The massive human ship began to split apart. Sections of its hull peeled away like flower petals, revealing that it wasn't one ship at all. It was hundreds of smaller vessels, all connected together, each one the size of a battleship. But these weren't normal ships either. As they separated, they began to change shape, their hulls flowing like liquid metal. Some became long and thin like spears. Others grew wide and flat like shields. Few transformed into shapes that hurt to look at, their geometry seeming to exist in more than 3 dimensions. The human voice spoke again, broadcast to every ship in the galaxy. "The Devourers have found you," it said. "They are older than your oldest civilizations. They have consumed 1,000 galaxies before this one. They turn matter into energy, and energy into hunger. They will not stop until every star is cold, and every world is empty." Admiral Kresh, commanding the combined alien fleet, sent a desperate message to the human ship. "What do they want? Can we negotiate with them?" The response came back immediately, filled with something that might have been sadness. "They want everything. They are not alive in any way you understand. They're hunger itself. Given form and purpose, negotiation is impossible. They cannot be reasoned with, bargained with, or turned aside. They can only be fought." As if responding to the conversation, the approaching entity suddenly accelerated. The dark shape shot forward at speeds that should have been impossible, crossing light years in minutes. When it finally slowed down at the edge of the galaxy, everyone could see what humanity had been fighting for 20,000 years. It wasn't a ship or a creature. It was something far worse. The entity looked like a massive storm made of living darkness, stretching across space like a hungry shadow. Inside the dark cloud, flashes of terrible light revealed glimpses of structures that made no sense. Buildings that were built inside out, machines that seemed to be eating themselves, geometric shapes that existed in too many dimensions. Where the entity touched the edge of the galaxy, stars began to go out, not exploding or burning out naturally, but simply ceasing to exist. The darkness consumed them completely, leaving behind empty space that felt wrong to look at.
"It's feeding,"
whispered Dr. Malax from his observation post. "It's actually eating the stars." The human ships moved to intercept the entity, but they looked impossibly small against the vast darkness. Weapons that could destroy planets fired into the shadow and seemed to have no effect. Energy beams that could crack moons simply disappeared into the hungry void. But the humans weren't fighting the way anyone expected. Instead of attacking the entity directly, they began building something in space. The smaller ships worked together, their hulls connecting and reshaping until they formed a massive structure that stretched across several star systems. "What are they making?" asked Veltar. His science officer studied the readings with confusion. "It looks like ... a cage, sir. They're building a cage around the entity. The cage was made of pure energy, held in place by technology that bent space and time. But even as the humans worked to contain it, the entity was changing the rules of reality around itself. Matter became energy. Energy became something else entirely. The laws of physics started breaking down wherever the darkness touched. Worse, the entity was learning. Each time the humans attacked, it adapted. Each time they tried a new strategy, the darkness found a way around it. This wasn't just a battle between ships and weapons. It was a war between different kinds of existence itself. "Now you understand," the human voice said over the communication channels. "This is why we changed ourselves. This is why we gave up our bodies, our individual minds, our humanity. To fight something like this, we had to become something like this." The entity pulsed with dark energy, and suddenly every electronic device in the alien fleet began malfunctioning. Computer screens showed impossible images. Gravity generators created fields that pointed in directions that didn't exist. Ships simply stopped working for no reason at all. "It's affecting our technology," reported Admiral Kresh. "Weapon systems are failing. Navigation is down. We can't even maintain formation." The human response was swift. Energy fields reached out from their ships, surrounding the alien vessels and protecting them from the entity's influence. But Veltar could see that the effort was costing the humans dearly. Their ships were dimming, their energy readings dropping. We can't protect us and fight that thing at the same time, he realized. The entity seemed to understand this too. It pressed forward, pushing against the human defenses with waves of pure darkness. Each attack made reality shiver. Each pulse of dark energy made the stars themselves flicker like candle flames in a wind. "People of the galaxy," the human voice said, and for the first time it sounded tired. "We need your help. Not your weapons or your ships. We need your minds. Your thoughts, your will to exist. This enemy feeds on reality itself, but reality is shaped by consciousness. The more minds that believe the universe should stay the way it is, the harder it becomes for them to change it." Veltar didn't fully understand what the humans were asking for. But as he watched the darkness pressing closer to inhabited space, he knew that understanding didn't matter. All that mattered was that 20,000 years of human sacrifice was about to be tested in a battle that would determine whether consciousness itself survived in the universe. The real war was just beginning. Commander Veltar closed his eyes and tried to understand what the humans were asking him to do. Think, believe, hold on to the idea that the universe should stay the way it was. It sounded simple, but as the darkness pressed closer to inhabited space, he could feel reality starting to bend around him. His ship's metal walls rippled like water. The air tasted like colors he had never seen. When he looked at his hands, sometimes they had 3 fingers, sometimes 7. The entity was rewriting the rules of existence just by being there. All ships, all stations, Admiral Kresh's voice crackled over the communication system. "The humans are right. Our weapons can't hurt this thing, but our minds might be able to stop it. Focus on what you know is real. Remember your home worlds. Remember your families. Don't let this darkness change what you believe." Across the galaxy, billions of minds turned their attention to the battle at the edge of space. Zephyrians remembered the cold beauty of their ice cities. Keth Mori thought about the vast forests of their birth world. Veil Runners focused on the quiet darkness between stars that had always been their home. But it wasn't enough. The entity pushed forward, and with each pulse of dark energy, more stars went out. Whole solar systems simply stopped existing, leaving behind empty spaces that hurt to think about. "We're losing," reported Dr. Millax from his observation post. "The entity's too strong. It's been doing this for millions of years. We're just one more galaxy to it." That was when the Eternal Vigil did something that no one expected. The massive, human ship began to broadcast not words, but memories. Raw human experiences flooded into every mind in the galaxy. Suddenly, aliens who had never seen Earth found themselves remembering blue skies and green grass. They felt the warmth of a sun they had never known. They heard the laughter of human children who had been gone for 20,000 years. But these weren't just happy memories. The humans shared everything. The terror they felt when they first detected the approaching entity. The pain of giving up their individual bodies to become something that could fight the darkness. The loneliness of standing guard in empty space. While the galaxy they protected forgot they existed, Veltar gasped as human emotions flooded through him. He felt their love for worlds they would never see again. Their determination to protect life they would never be part of. Their willingness to sacrifice everything, even their own humanity, to keep the universe safe. "Now you understand," the layered human voice said, and it sounded like crying and laughing at the same time. "This is what we gave up. This is what we became, not because we wanted to, but because someone had to stand guard." The shared memories had an unexpected effect. Instead of weakening the alien resolve, they made it stronger. Zephyrians began thinking not just about their own ice cities, but about the warm human cities they had seen in the memories. Keth Mori added human forests to their own vast woodlands. Every species in the galaxy found their sense of what was. Real expanded to include things they had never experienced, but now remembered. The entity paused in its advance. For the first time since the battle began, the darkness seemed uncertain. It had consumed thousands of galaxies, but it had never encountered anything like this before. A collective consciousness made up of dozens of different species, all believing. In the same expanded version of reality, "It's working," whispered his science officer. "The entity is having trouble changing things. There are too many minds believing in what already exists. But the humans weren't finished. The eternal vigil began to break apart again, but this time the separated ships moved toward the alien fleet.
Ow.
Each human vessel connected with an alien ship, their hulls merging in ways that should have been impossible. Veltar watched in amazement as a section of the human ship bonded with the Starwind. His simple patrol vessel suddenly became something else entirely. Its hull flowed and changed, gaining new weapons and defenses that he couldn't understand. But more importantly, he could feel human thoughts mixing with his own. The same thing was happening across the fleet. Human consciousness merged with alien minds, creating something new. Not human, not alien, but a combination of both. Each species brought their own way of understanding the universe. While humanity provided the knowledge and technology needed to fight the entity, "We are no longer separate," the voice said. But now it wasn't just human anymore. Veltar could hear his own species in it and dozens of others. "We are one mind, one purpose, one belief in what should be." The entity attacked with everything it had, sending waves of dark energy that tried to tear apart the fabric of space itself. But the combined consciousness pushed back. Every time the darkness tried to change the rules, billions of minds insisted that the rules should stay the same. Reality became a battlefield. The entity would make gravity flow upward, and the combined fleet would believe it should flow down. The darkness would try to make time run backward, and countless voices would demand that it move forward. Stars that the entity tried to consume would suddenly flare back to life as entire civilizations refused to let them die. The battle raged for hours that felt like years. Neither side could gain a permanent advantage. The entity was ancient and powerful, but the combined consciousness was something it had never faced before. Not just one species fighting for survival, but dozens of races working together, sharing their hopes and dreams and stubborn refusal to give up. Finally, the darkness began to retreat, not because it was destroyed, but because it could no longer change reality in a galaxy where so many minds were united in believing what should be real. "It's leaving," reported Dr. Millax, hardly believing his own sensors. "The entity is returning to the void between galaxies." But Veltar could feel through the connection that this wasn't a victory. It was just a pause. The entity would go somewhere else, try to consume some other galaxy, and eventually it would return. "What happens now?" he asked through the mental link. "Now we change everything," came the reply from the human part of the collective consciousness. "No more hiding. No more silence. The galaxy has seen what's out there in the dark. We stand together or we fall alone." In the months that followed, the galaxy transformed itself as the old empires and confederations dissolved, replaced by something new. The United Consciousness, they called it. Not a government ruled by force, but a voluntary joining of minds dedicated to protecting reality itself. The eternal vigil returned to its watch in the deep void. But it was no longer alone. Ships from every species joined the patrol, their crews, linked through human technology that preserved their individuality while connecting their thoughts. Earth's barrier finally came down, revealing a world that had become something between a planet and a space station. Humans still lived there, but not as they once had. They existed as points of light in vast computer networks, where consciousness preserved and expanded beyond anything their ancestors could have imagined. Veltar, now captain of a ship that was part alien technology and part human innovation, often thought about the old stories his grandfather had told him. Stories about humans who never gave up, no matter how bad things got. His grandfather had been right. The humans never did give up. They just changed what it meant to be human until they became something that could protect everyone else. And in the darkness between galaxies, ancient eyes watched and waited, knowing that eventually they would return. But when they did,